December 2016, an event for a group of companies brought in to resurrect East Africa's largest paper factory. But more than 5 years later, there is nothing much to celebrate.
Hii panpaper itawahi rudi kuwa panpaper kweli.
The hope of a revived factory, town and job is slowly fading. Out of the factory's 4 channels, only one is functional. I have established that the production is also on a very low scale. Machines have continued to rust away. Welcome to the Kenyan Historian. Now, if you want to get all our documentaries, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. My name is Enoch Sikolia. I am a Kenyan journalist and I love telling stories about events, decisions and policies that cut across generations. Today, I am in Webuye town in the western part of Kenya. I am here to tell a story that I am so passionate about. The story of panpaper mills. A place that symbolizes the era of industrial collapse in Kenya. The rusty machines that you see here today were the jewel and life of this town.
Panpaper ilikuwa imeandika watu wengi sana. Hao ndo walikuwa wateja wetu, wakitoka kampuni wananunua vitu zetu. Ilikuwa na shift wa saa 5 wakitoka wanaingia wengine tunafanya biashara mpaka saa 4 saa 3.
I have come back to a place I knew and visited frequently while growing up. It was our town and marketplace. I was born in Kabras, Kakamega County, just 14 kilometers from here, and the sight of this factory gives me nostalgic memories. After suffering years of industrial collapse and stagnation, I have come here to find out what the future holds for the people of Webuye. I'm also trying to establish just how a mill like this was brought down and its collapse destroying the dreams of thousands of ordinary Kenyans. Now, the shopping center you see behind me is called Sango. Businesses boomed here. I remember there was a butter shop just right in the middle where I'm standing at the junction between the Webuye Road and the Bungoma Road. But today, the butter is no more. It just paints the picture of how businesses collapsed when panpaper went down the drain. This was once a giant paper factory in East and Central Africa region. It was a source of income for thousands, a place where both the skilled and non-skilled eked a living. For more than 40 years, Pan-African Paper Mills, as it was legally known, turned trees into paper.
At its peak, the factory employed over 3,000 Kenyans. Patrick Njoroge worked as the company's executive driver.
Mimi nilikuwa naendesha magari ya wakubwa, kwa hivyo nilikuwa very close na wakubwa. So nilikuwa nafurahia kazi yangu na pia nilikuwa napata mapato yangu bila kuchelewa. Hizi manyumba zenye mnajionea hapa ndio mimi nilikuja kuishi from Nairobi, nikapewa nyumba ya F10 na ilikuwa nyumba inakuwa maintained every year, inapakwa rangi.
So those were homes meant for junior staff, but there were also homes meant for members of staff who were on senior levels. For example, supervisors. Those homes were located on the right-hand side from where I'm standing.
Tulikuwa tunaishi mzuri kabisa kulingana na panpaper. Hata pesa mshahara tulikuwa tunasema ni ndogo, lakini tumekuja kugundua ya kwamba panpaper Mr. Bira alikuwa analipa sisi mzuri sana.
Mama Halima's husband worked as a laborer at the factory.
Wakati hiyo ilikuwa ndio ni panpaper. Juu tulikuwa ukitaka kaloni unapata, watoto shule tulikuwa nayo, hospitali tulikuwa nayo, kilikuwa kiwanda kizuri. Ndio mshahara ilikuwa chini kwa wazee, lakini walikuwa na vitu kama school fees loan, walikuwa na cooperative bank, hizo cooperative walikuwa na vitu nini ndogo ndogo hizi za kusaidia za kuboost. Mzee hata akipata mshahara kidogo ataenda akope pesa tena huko na tunasukuma nayo. Aya, panpaper ilikuanga na secondary yake, ilikuwa na primary yake. Ulikuwa ukiwa mgonjwa utaenda kwa hospitali ya panpaper utatibiwa. Sasa hatukuwa na ile gharama kubwa ati utatafuta matibabu nje ama nini.
The good old days of the panpaper mills had a direct impact on Webuye town, which experienced tremendous growth with each ton of paper produced by the factory. Compared to other urban centers in Western Kenya, Webuye had a complete infrastructure of a modern urban center. Energy supply, food production, good systems, and not much crime. It was a good place for families to live. If the nearby Chetambe Hills had a voice, they would have narrated the nostalgic stories of panpaper mills and Webuye town.
Bamba ilibadilika.
Anthony Masungo is a football maniac.
Yeye namalizianga mimi wakati. Wewe haribu pesa yako. Nakuja unakaa hapa. Hiyo kutoka hapa sasa unaenda kwa nyumba kidogo na singisi. Umesonga. Umetoa stress umetoa. Tanga utaenda kwa janga. Hapana.
He still comes here to remember the days Panpaper Football Club graced Kenya's Premier League.
Watu walikuwa na chang wanatoka mbali mbali, si ati Webuye peke yake. Walikuwa wanatoka Kimilili, Bungoma, hata Kitale wanakuja kuangalia mpira hapa Webuye. Sababu ilikuwa wakati ya ligi. Ligi kama imekuja hapa kwa timu yote walikuwa naingia hapa kwa uwanja hii Ilala Stadium. Hapo wakati ile nilikuwa nakumbuka Ingwe. Timu yetu Ingwe FC. Hiyo ndio timu ilikuwa na, kama wanasema tu nakuja hapa kukutana na panpaper, siku hiyo kazi inakwisha. Lazima nikuja hapa niangalie hiyo.
I was born and raised up 14 kilometers from where I am right now, Panpaper Stadium. The village is called Matsaha village. So what used to happen is that we used to walk all the way from Matsaha, 14 kilometers, to the stadium to watch football matches. We're not just talking about any other league, but Kenya's top tier, the Premier League. It is from here that I got to watch my favorite player then and my friend today, Matthew Otomax. I also got to watch Hassan Sese, Philip Ouma, James Kaimba, and many others, Odhiambo Deu. Those were players of my favorite team, AFC Leopards. I also got to watch other players. We're talking about Francis Onyiso. We're talking about Vincent Kwarula. Many other players that I got to watch from Panpaper Stadium. It was during those days when Panpaper was Panpaper and used to support Panpaper Football Club. Without forgetting, my uncle, Shoto Mdimba, used to play for Panpaper as the left back, then used to be known as number 3.
Ile naikumbuka Shoto ika hapo kwa Panpaper team. Kuja Sai alikuwa hapo, makanika alikuwa mfundi, ile mchezaji anaitwa makanika. Akatoka hapo akaenda timu ya Mumias. Hiyo party alikuwa Panpaper timu. Tena hiyo kama amekaa 11 ilikuwa nasema wacha nione hao.
Panpaper Mills was among corporates that supported and financed football clubs in Kenya.
Will the glory days of Panpaper ever come back? Will Panpaper Football Club ever return and play some wonderful football the way it used to be?
In the 90s, Panpaper Football Club played in Kenya's Premier League, then called KFF Premier League. At this time, the Webuye Best Factory was pulling in business, and from the outside, the future looked bright. But in the background, debts were accumulating, and the company was struggling to remain afloat. So when did rains start beating the giant paper factory? 1980. The year Kenya adopted more liberal trade and interest rate regimes. That was after the government signed a structural adjustment agreement with the World Bank. From 1982 into the 1990s, under pressure from donors, particularly the World Bank, Kenya began shifting import restrictions from quotas to tariffs and decreasing tariff levels. In 1987, 40% of all importable items had quantitative quotas, but by July 1991, import licenses were only used for health and security reasons. In addition to opening up imports, Kenya introduced several programs through the 1980s and 1990s designed to promote exports, such as the Manufacturing Under Bond Scheme in 1988, which allowed manufacturers producing for export to import equipment duty-free, as well as the creation in 1990 of the manufacturer-friendly export processing zones. The Kenyan industrial sector experienced a major shake-up during the structural adjustment period as cheaper imports flooded the market. Before then, pan-paper mills and other monopolies enjoyed protective policies. This period marked the beginning of the end of pan paper as we knew it. Indeed, many factors conspired to bring down the factory. With pan paper struggling, Indian managers hatched an elaborate plan to defraud the creditors. Bila Group, which had the majority shareholder, had managed the company through Orient Paper Industries of India since 1970, earning a fixed annual fee of about 96 million shillings paid in dollars. The Indian management company was paid even when there was nothing to show for it by Pan African Paper Mills Limited managers. A report by the Ministry of Industrialization released on the 14th of April 2009 stated that there was no evidence of set benchmarks against which to measure performance, as the company had never had a strategic plan. The Indian managers were on the pan paper mills payroll as well, which was a clear case of double payment. According to the report, Orient also enjoyed additional fees pegged on sales and net profit. They made illegal cash payments even when the factory was sinking deep into debt. By the time of closure, production had declined from a high of 8,000 to about 3,500 metric tons per month in January 2009 against the factory capacity of 10,000 metric tons. By the time the factory collapsed in 2009, it had an outstanding debt of 9 billion shillings. The Indian managers left a month after realizing the company was on its deathbed. They could not even pay Kenya Power and Lighting Company for power consumed. In January 2009, KPLC, as Kenya Power was known then, switched off electricity supply over an unpaid bill of 201 million shillings, and hence the machine went silent. It is what triggered short-term lenders, including Kenya Commercial Bank, Barclays Bank of Kenya, Ecobank Kenya, and Bank of Baroda Kenya, to place the company under receivership.
Tulitukia tu kampuni imeanguka because you were promised. Tulikuwa promised ya kwamba na our former bosses ya kwamba wanafunga miezi 3 then wakuje waturudishe kwa kazi. Lakini it is not what happened. Wakati tulistukia wakubwa wetu au ni Wahindi, Mr. Bira family wameenda na hawakurudi. So walituacha kwa hizi nyumba na promises za kurudi. So sisi tulikaa tukagoja and that was not happen. Baadaye after all tukaona sasa kampuni imeanguka na watu wengi wakaanza kutoka kwa manyumba. Hata saa hii sisi tumeshikilia manyumba namna hii, sisi tunagoja kulipwa.
With no strategic plan, the company had numerous enormous challenges. Shortage of raw material was a big one. Out of the 25,000 hectares of pulpwood plantation that had been exclusively reserved by the government for use by pan paper, only 8,000 hectares were available, as wood harvest had been restricted to trees that were at least 18 years old. Additional acreage would only be available in 2013. The collapse of Webuye pan paper mills cost thousands of people their savings, their jobs, and their homes. Njoroge runs a small shop at Chocolate Estate. The business isn't doing well either. Chocolate Estate is one of the settlements where hundreds of low-cadre workers stayed, surrounded by schools, dispensaries, and a culture and recreational center. The collapse of pan-paper mills literally sucked life out of this neighborhood. It is now a town where a former mills employee, an out-of-work hotelier, and a market vendor read from the same script. There is no money.
Sasa hakuna watu, tunafanya biashara saa mbili watu wameisha town. Tunarejea kwa nyumba. Imezima. Light street hakuna. Maendeleo hakuna. Sasa tuko tu hivyo ya haya.
The town's economy is no longer sustaining, and poverty levels are quite high.
Vitu ziko juu na biashara iko chini.
Our aerial footage tells the story of buildings with rusty roofs. As I walk through the streets of Webuye, I could not fail to notice traces of the past abandoned eateries, shops, and old structures that I visited when I was young. They remind me of the Webuye town of yesterday, when life was good. After failed attempts to revive the factory, a deal was struck and the company was sold to Rai Group of Companies in 2016 at a cost of 900 million shillings. Billions of shillings had already been lost as the Kibaki and Kenyatta governments set aside billions to either bail or to revive the factory.
Correct. Doing concept but with less fuel.
It was in 2016 when Rai Group acquired the factory. But the revival has taken a snail pace, and residents are yet to be convinced that the old days will be back soon.
Hakuna. Moshi hiyo sasa tujua wanaunda nini hiyo moshi. Wao tunaona tu moshi. Wakati mwingine wakasema iko huko stoko ya sukari ya Mercury. Sasa hatujui ni sukari, hatujui ni makaratasi, hatujui ni nini, lakini wanasema panpaper inafanya. Lakini bado hujaona manufaa. Hatujui hata inatengeneza nini. Lija kusema panpaper imefunguliwa, wale watu walikuwa wanafanya panpaper hawakurejeshwa. Mmoja wao ni mzee wangu, hana kazi, tunauza tunaye mboga kibanda. Sasa tunashindwa ilifunguliwa na watu wakifanya kazi ni wakina nani huko ndani.
Aerial photography reveal parts that have undergone rehabilitation, but the biggest part of the machinery is in a sorry state. Rusty metals and non-functional mills. Only one out of the machines has been operating since the big deal. The hope of a revived factory, town and job is slowly fading. But there is a much bigger problem: lack of raw materials. There are no trees to be chewed by the machines. The factory has been recycling carton boxes for 5 years. The revival is premised on 4 assumptions. 1, that the government will consistently and adequately supply wood to the factory. They targeted getting trees from Mount Elgon, Kaptagat forests and farmers. That is yet to happen. But there is a picture that has left Webuye residents concerned. The factory's biggest chimneys are gone and yet to be replaced. This has left many to allege that Rai Group used some parts of the factory to build West Kenya's second miller in Tongareni, Bungoma County. West Kenya is the producer of Cabra's sugar. My name is Enoch Sikolia and I am the Kenyan Historian.